Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. Dallas gets a nice little hit on our stream numbers up there in the DFW area. That's good news for the next guy because he's hosting a get-together up in the DFW area this evening. He, of course, is Billy Embody from On3, the Bengal Tiger. Billy, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Not as good as LSU is, though, after this weekend.
They're doing very well, and we'll get into that. But I do want you to talk about what y'all got going on up in the Dallas area for our listeners.
Yeah, for LSU fans, if you're around in the Plano area or DFW in general, we're going to do a little get-together for our Bengal Tiger subscribers at Katy Trail Ice House Outpost in Plano. So get together, talk a little fall camp, but especially talk about the Bayou Splash that happened this weekend. It'll be a good time from about 6 o'clock until 9. So swing on by if you don't have plans.
It is it's talking season, and we'll do a little bit of that. You mentioned the Bayou Splash this weekend, a couple of commitments on the offensive line for LSU in Ori Williams yesterday and Joseph Cryer just about an hour and a half ago. What can you tell us about these two additions?
Yeah, Ori Williams is one of my favorite guys in this class. Just from a personality perspective, he is happy-go-lucky, enthusiastic, always with a smile on his face. But you got to usually look up at that smile because he's about 6'7", 300 pounds, and one of the really high upside offensive linemen in this cycle. We just moved him up into the top 40 overall offensive tackles in the country, and if his senior season comes together the way we think, he could move up even higher. But his frame, his athleticism, and that upside is why programs like Texas A&M, Florida, were really pushing for him. But LSU won out. He's got some ties to Louisiana. Brad Davis did a really nice job recruiting him. That was the strongest relationship he had. And he got around LSU a good bit and silently committed on his official visit in June, but then came back again for the Bayou Splash, and then that's when he went public on Sunday night. So he had originally wanted to announce during his season before one of his games, but moved it up. So that was a good thing for LSU to get him out and publicly committed. And then Joseph Cryer came together really quickly in the last week. I think LSU, was evaluating multiple offensive linemen in the state of Louisiana to maybe make a move on them as their senior years get underway. And Joseph Cryer was the one they circled. They offered him last week, and that really hit home with him. This is a lifelong dream for him to play for LSU, and Brad Davis had kept in touch. Some of the staff had kept in touch with him, and he had committed to Ole Miss in June. He didn't have an LSU offer yet, but they just kind of stayed in contact. And instead of waiting until his senior year began, they wanted to jump on him and get him flipped over to the Tigers, and he did just that. He's a big, physical interior offensive lineman. He could play center, could play guard, but he is somebody that has a nasty streak on film. That's what really jumps off the board at you, when you're watching his huddle, is just how nasty he is on the field. So LSU really has a good offensive line class. You've got Ethan Callaway and Ori Williams, two high upside tackles. You've got Kyrie Lee out of New Orleans, who's committed and has lost a lot of weight, really looked good when we saw him at camp. And now you have Joseph Cryer. So they've got 4. They'll take 5 if they can get somebody like Elijah Thurman, who they just offered. He's a top 300 overall prospect out of Georgia. And then they're still recruiting Blake Ivy, trying to beat out Texas A&M for him out of the Houston area. He's a 4-star interior guy. So they could be taking 5, but they've got a really good group of 4 committed now.
I opened my show today talking about the track record Brian Kelly had at Notre Dame recruiting offensive linemen, and then I went back to a sound bite from his introductory press conference where he said there's a demeanor and a profile we're going to recruit to there, and we're not going to get into specifics, but that's the formula. As you've now evaluated him for a couple of years in full recruiting cycles, getting offensive linemen, what would you say that profile looks like?
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place in a way, in a good way, right? We saw LSU in the past, Ed Ogeron and his staff, like really big offensive linemen and guys that, coming out of high school looked like they were physically at least ready to go, some too big to play. But LSU has gone after, a guy like Zalance Hurd, who is physically ready to go, but has those elite athletic traits. They've gotten Tyree Adams, who's a high upside tackle. They went into Georgia and pulled guys like DJ Chester, who's physically ready, but also very bright in the classroom and just from a character and personality perspective. And then Paul Mabenga, a guy who's going to have to add weight and has some really impressive athletic traits too. In this class, I talked about it earlier, just kind of this, group of prospects that you've brought in that are high upside guys in Ori Williams and Ethan Callaway, who are still developing on their technique. But, in Ethan Callaway's case, he hasn't played football for really, he's played 3 seasons of high school football, and that freshman year was kind of taken, during COVID in a way. So you just have all sorts of different body types, but nobody's too big, at least from what I've seen to play. And, that concern that you get with recruiting big guys. Sometimes we haven't seen that. They like the guys that are either kind of right in a good little spot with their frame and their weight and things like that, or they're guys that they want to add weight. Even Connor Gilbreth, who was a late addition to the 2023 class, he arrives tomorrow. He's a blocking tight end at about 270, but he could pack on some weight, and long term they kind of see him as an offensive tackle. So they're turning over a lot of different stones from recruiting guys that have the best of the best recruiting them, to also working on those guys and evaluating them throughout the process that maybe didn't have the offers right away. Ethan Callaway, LSU was the second offer for him all the way out in North Carolina. The first offer was Campbell. So sometimes it takes a lot of courage to jump on a guy who doesn't have the offers, thinking, okay, you can wait it out and see how he develops. But they have a really good trust in their evaluations. Carl St. Cyr, who's an analyst in that building, works really hard at it with Brad Davis and Brian Kelly, I'm sure, to look at these offensive linemen and turn over every stone to find them. So they do a really good job at it overall.
Campbell, good baseball program. Not real sure on the offensive line evaluation, but I can promise you they're pretty good on the diamond in the spring. I'm chatting with Billy Embody from On3, part of the Bengal Tiger crew. Look, I'm not as deep in the weeds as recruiting clearly as y'all are, but it doesn't take very long for me to get onto y'all's message board and see that the names Colin Simmons and Cade Durham are very frequently used. It's a Duncanville duo here. What can you tell us about the last couple of weeks in those two guys?
Yeah, this is what I would call the if you land both, this is the last couple of weeks is when they really pushed themselves over the top. They got them both on campus for the Bayou Splash. LSU has been turning up the heat and overdrive, complete overdrive on both those guys in the dead period. There's alums helping, NFL alums and coaches that are calling them and all of these things to show them how big of a priority they are. I mean, this is a complete group effort when you're talking about trying to go into Duncanville, which is one of the best programs in the country at producing talent, and get these guys out of the state of Texas would be huge. And Caden Durham, 4-star running back on the cusp of a top 100 ranking, is one of the best in the country and one of the best sprinters too. So he would run track at LSU if he commits. And at this point, we're starting to see that momentum really build that it is going to be LSU for him. And we'll see if Oklahoma can swing back and get him back in kind of in their grasp. But right now, all the momentum is pointing toward LSU with Caden Durham. And I would say there's a lot more momentum around Colin Simmons and LSU as well. Texas left the month of June with a ton of confidence that they're going to get him. The Longhorns are really pushing, and it is a tough task for LSU to beat out Texas with the way they're for the most part, getting the guys that they target. And Colin Simmons is one of those that they have to have in the class of 2024. And LSU has really swung back with a ton of momentum. That Bayou Splash visit with his mom, his brother, his grandmother even came. This has been a really big group effort on Colin Simmons to get them in position to be, 1A, 1B, however you want to look at it. And we'll see when he announces his decision. I'm really intrigued to see if he locks it in before that senior season. But if he does, that is a good sign for LSU. They've got to weather, whatever swing in momentum Texas is going to try and put together again. But LSU has put themselves in really good position to land Colin Simmons. We'll see if it's enough, but they have really done just about everything they can to get him on board.
Big picture thing, you're obviously in the state of Texas. How are the recruiting dynamics between A&M and Texas as the Longhorns are 12 months out from joining the SEC?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, and I think both programs have had different levels of success keeping the state's talent in the Lone Star State, and it is a constant storyline when it comes to recruiting. If Texas or Texas A&M aren't keeping these guys home, A&M, they made their wave a couple years ago with that class that they put together, and Texas, on the other hand, has been recruiting well, but they haven't gotten that stranglehold back on some of the state's top talent that they would like to. I know both programs are certainly investing in recruiting like you would expect to gear up for the SEC. Texas joining the SEC, but A&M has really been trying to sustain that recruiting success from 2 years ago. They kind of fell back a little bit last year, but it's just a constant storyline. The state's top talent, will it stay home? And it's been a mixed bag in a lot of cases. And if Texas, for example, can get Colin Simmons to stay home, that is one of the biggest recruiting storylines of the year because he is one of those prospects that they have got to have. A&M has tried, but it seems like it's a two-horse race right now with LSU and Texas for Colin Simmons. And if LSU can pull him out of state, that'd be a massive, massive feather in the cap for Brian Kelly and his staff.
There is a massive, massive amount of Bayou Splash information on the Bengal Tiger message board over there, part of the On3 network. Billy and Shay have been all over it. Billy, we appreciate a little bit of time. Y'all have fun tonight.
Anytime. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
He is Billy Embody, and we certainly appreciate his time. It's recruiting season. We're about to flip the page to camp season, where most of our storylines are going to be around what goes on the field. But man, are they they doing a lot of recruiting right about now, and seems like a lot of things going well for LSU. We'll come back and close that out number one next. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.